Hey everybody, this is TJR.
This is Superfan.
And say hello to our little friend. And we are going to talk about the Rock Hall of Fame, hopefully a bit differently this time around. Every year, the same thing happens. A new group of Rock Hall of Fame inductees get announced, and there is a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth. And first of all, let me say, I get it. We get it. We understand the anger. We empathize. We know that the outrage comes from a place of passion for rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so prior to filming this, we started to ask ourselves, how did we get here? Why is it this way every year? And there's a lot of talk, but I thought it would be important to kind of sit down and have a serious discussion about this. That hopefully at the end of it has something productive to say.
Yeah.
So first of all, I wanted to just kind of summarize a lot of the complaints that we both hear year after year. And hope you don't mind, I've taken notes here and I just don't want to miss anything because there's a lot. So some of the main complaints are, first of all, inducting music artists who do not record or perform in the genre of rock. Inducting music artists who, again, do not record or perform in the rock genre in lieu of rock artists that have had a long history within the rock genre. Also, these same rock artists getting passed over year after year after year. One that Robert consistently brings up is Bad Company. And he's right. They get passed over year after year, even though they have a long legacy and history, within the genre. Another complaint is, and Robert's been a big proponent of this one, and so am I, and I know you are too, elder statesmen within the genre.
Absolutely.
Being passed over by not just artists outside of the genre, but by artists who are a lot younger. The basic idea being, please let these elder statesmen artists, these pioneering artists, get their honors while they're still alive to be able to experience it.
Yeah.
Versus giving it to younger artists who could wait. Some of the other complaints are a sense of elitism for how artists are chosen. That certain genres of rock are almost completely ignored year after year. A bias in favor of American and British acts. And in addition to this, a lot of famous rock artists, and some who have actually been nominated or maybe inducted, have also spoken out. Here are some examples. The Sex Pistols, Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits, Liam Gallagher of Oasis, and who has a solo career, have all critically called out the Rock Hall of Fame. Singers Charlotte Church, musician Steve Miller have accused the museum of having a gender bias. Also, complaints from the music artists themselves that they're not treated very well by the Rock Hall of Fame. But that goes more internal, and I want to kind of keep things more like external, like what the public sees and what we complain about. So the question that we kind of both asked ourselves was, how did we get here? Because, you and I, we have both been voting members of the Grammy Awards.
The Recording Academy.
Recording Academy. Well, yeah, people know it as the Grammy Awards, but it's actually technically called the Recording Academy. We've both been members. We've both been voting members. We've both had an inside view of that. We have we really had no knowledge as to how does the Rock Hall of Fame work? Who votes on it?
Yeah.
It's funny because we never really thought much about it. And so we did some research, and just here is a little bit of quick history. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation was established in April 1983 by Ahmet Ertegun, founder and chairman of Atlantic Records.
Yes.
He assembled a team that included publisher, and I never know if I say it right, John Wenner of Rolling Stone magazine.
It's actually Jan Winner.
Wenner, okay.
But the other maybe is more appropriate.
I do sometimes want to keep saying Wiener. Record executive Seymour Stein, Bob Krasnow and Noreen Woods, and attorneys Alan Grubman and Susan Evans. The foundation began inducting in 1986. In May of 86, the Hall of Fame Foundation chose Cleveland as the permanent home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. I think it's important to bring up the museum, and I'm going to talk about that more later. The museum was dedicated in September 1995. So basically, once we found all this out, we realized that the nomination process is controlled by a small number of individuals who are not themselves musicians. And this is, we found out, is a common complaint. Founders, John Weiner and Susan Evans, and writer Dave Marsh. They're not musicians. They are reflecting their personal tastes rather than public opinion as a whole. Now, compare this to the Grammys, Recording Academy. The Grammys the voting body is, I'm not sure how large it is or how large it was when we were members, but it's huge.
Yeah, like 10,000 people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it includes musicians, professional musicians, recording artists, recording engineers, music producers, music executives. It even includes music educators. So it's a vast and diverse group of music industry professionals or people who have some connection to the music industry. Even, an independent recording artist, which I was at the time. I don't consider myself one now because I haven't released or recorded anything in quite some time. But even I was able to become a voting member. And when I found out I could be, we both seized on the opportunity because you had written songs with me. We encouraged other independent artists to become members to vote. But again, there's that openness to allow professionals from all walks of life within the music industry, from those who are at the top of the hill to those who are at the bottom of the hill, to be able to vote. Versus basically what comes to, I think, 5 people deciding who's worthy being...
Who they like.
And that's the other thing. There is this outcry of elitism, which I feel is true, that it's more about their personal tastes. I think it comes down to the voting body not voting, or I should say voting subjectively versus objectively.
The voting 5?
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. There might be music artists out there that I'm not personally that into, but I recognize their contribution to music. And I recognize that, they deserve to be honored, even if I personally don't like them. And I think that's where we see a lot of the complaints that are not unjustified, that the Rock Hall of Fame passes on certain artists year after year after year, that they either ignore or almost completely ignore certain genres of music. Prog rock has been one that was for a long time, it seemed like Yes was the only band that they honored with it, in that genre. Recently, over the last few years, a few more bands in that genre have finally gotten honored. And I think some of it is because there's been so much outcry about certain genres. Metal is another one that just year after year after year, mostly just ignored or passed over. And it gets really upsetting when they get passed over for someone that, clearly metal is rock. It's not the only definition of rock, but clearly metal is rock, and clearly prog rock is rock. But when these artists are passed over by artists who are clearly not rock, it creates a lot of anger, resentment, and it's not unjustified. Also, we've also heard that there's a lot of criticism regarding the transparency, and I'm going to read here. Janet Morsey of the New York Times wrote, "With fame and money at stake, it's no surprise that a lot of backstage lobbying goes on. Politics are prevalent everywhere, of course. Why any particular act is chosen in any particular year is a mystery to performers as well as outsiders, and committee members say that they want to keep it that way. The chairman of the nominating committee, John Landau, confirmed, 'We've done a good job of keeping the proceedings non-transparent. It all dies in the room.'" And I think that's wrong. I think there should be transparency.
There should be transparency.
So one thing I should say, the museum does cover the history of rock and roll regardless of induction, which is unbiased. That's good. But yeah, there should be more transparency, especially when it's such a small group of voters. So it's kind of easy to see how we got here. Also, one other thing that I should bring up here, a former member of the nominations board, and they don't say who, once commented that at one point, Susan Evans lamented the choices being made because these choices, these artists, weren't big enough names that would sell tickets to the dinner, the ceremony, basically. This was quickly remedied by dropping one of the doo-wop groups being considered in favor of a name artist. And it goes on to say here, "I saw how certain pioneering artists of the 50s and early 60s were shunned because there needed to be more name power on the list, resulting in 70s superstars getting in before the people who made it possible for them. Some of those pioneers still aren't in today." And so this is kind of an anonymous quote, but we've seen this.
Yeah.
We've already seen this, how pioneering artists get passed over. Legacy artists get passed over for name value. And I've often said in past discussions when I talked to Robert was, that they want to be relevant to the kids, to the younger audiences. So rock is not relevant to young artists at this point. Not like it used to be.
That's true.
Hip hop, country music, those two genres are far more relevant to younger artists now than rock. So they need to appeal to them. So you combine this elitism, of this small group of people telling the rest of the music industry who's worthy, with the fact that they are willing to sell out their beliefs in order to fill seats. And it's easy to see why we are where we are. It does kind of remind me of the whole pay-to-play club scene of the 80s.
I'd agree with that.
Where, in order to play the clubs like the Whiskey and Gazzarri's, these big 80s rock clubs that every band was trying to get into so they could get discovered, they were hustling tickets, and it became more about who could sell the most tickets versus who was the best.
In this case, who's going to bring in more people and get us more attention.
Yeah, and keep us relevant with the young kids. So the question becomes, at the end of all this, and like I said, this is a conversation we started to have today and began to research and think about, is what can be done to fix things? Taking an optimistic point of view, what could be done to fix things? One of the first things that we both talked about is, if you're going to nominate artists whose careers exist outside of the genre of rock, then you need to explain why. Now, the Rock Hall of Fame, of course, has a long history of nominating artists who are outside of the rock genre who do deserve to be there. The moment you say, well, we're only going to allow rock artists in the Rock Hall of Fame, the moment you do that, you've committed an unpardonable sin. Because it's pretty much a given that rock and roll is the godchild of the blues. And that there's also lineage of country in rock and roll too. So you have to honor all these legendary blues artists who helped give birth to rock and roll. So you do have to. There is an argument to be made for honoring artists outside of the rock genre within the Rock Hall of Fame.
Artists who've inspired,
influenced.
Yeah.
And so, there are artists who have been nominated outside of the Rock Hall of Fame that I feel are perfectly justified in being there. And not just blues, country as well. I'm not going to get into all the arguments. That's kind of on a case-by-case basis.
But there's an argument that could be made that Mozart belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I would agree. If Mozart were to get nominated for the Rock Hall of Fame, you and I both know what that argument is. We're not going to get into it here because, again, it's on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, there's definitely an argument made. But, of course, Mozart's never going to get...
He's not going to put any butts in the chair.
That's right. He's not going to put any butts in the chair, so it's never going to happen. These... you can't say that artists outside of rock should never get in. But I believe that if you're going to nominate them or induct them, you have to make the case to the public, to us, as to why. What is the argument? You're never going to have everybody in perfect agreement with it, but at least make the case and make a good case for it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things I think that needs to be addressed. So in this discussion, you came up with an idea that I thought was...
It's kind of a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, basically it was brilliant because it's a no-brainer. And so I would like you to do the honors on that one in mentioning this.
People who have been inducted should be the ones that are nominating these people. And honestly, I kind of thought I just assumed that was the way it was.
Mm-hmm. They should be voting. They should be allowed to vote on this.
Well, no, but they should be nominating them as well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you have those 5 people saying you can pick from these artists.
Yeah. Then it's still
thing.
just as bad. It's still just as bad in many respects. But yeah, I agree. If you get inducted, you should be allowed to nominate. You should be allowed to vote on those nominations. Again, you're never going to see 100% agreement across the board with the general public, but it becomes a whole lot more fair. It becomes a
lot more interesting.
Yes, a lot more diverse and a lot more interesting.
Because, especially if they share the ballots and say these, and maybe that's not appropriate, but to hear the stories of one person that each of the voting members put in.
Well, that would be up to them, I think, to discuss it, especially with social media now. Individual artists who have been inducted could say that, I nominated this person for this reason. This is why I feel they should be nominated. And that could be, that could actually really help the Rock Hall of Fame as far as visibility.
It could.
Because it starts a discussion.
It's a
with everybody.
Promotes it.
It promotes it. It promotes it because it begins a discussion, because this famous artist is saying we should nominate this person who is maybe in the rock genre, maybe not in the rock genre, but here's why. And let's discuss it. And the voting body discusses it. The general public discusses it. Even if they're not involved in the decision making, they still discuss it. And it creates conversation about it. And so, yeah, we're never going to be in 100% agreement, but opening it up to the inductees does make sense. And I would have always thought that was how it was done too, probably.
It allows for growth, and it allows for open-mindedness, which I don't think we have with this group of people, and a little less worry about filling a venue
Yeah.
I get that it's part of it and it's part of the show, but I think that having good acts there, even if the artist being inducted is less known, they've got the base of great acts now. To, if somebody's putting them up for, to be inducted, then that's kind of agreeing that they're going to be there to support that artist on stage.
Yeah.
Is how I would look at it. And
Yeah.
that might have to be part of the rule too. You have to be willing to perform with this person on stage.
Those are all good ideas. So yeah, I think it's just a simple. I think it's a real good solution, a simple solution. Now, whether or not the current establishment is ever going to allow anything like that is, of course, not up to us. But this is kind of like our solution, and you thought of it, and I agree with it, and it's kind of our solution that we think would help improve things. So that's the thing. We just wanted we didn't want to just sit here and complain about it. We wanted to offer something productive at the end of it that could help fix things. And these are the things that we think primarily could be done to fix it. It's important that there be a rock museum, just like the Country Music Hall of Fame has their museum.
Yeah.
And if you go to the Country Music Hall of Fame, which we have, rock music is represented there. If you take the tour, you'll see that rock artists are honored, mentioned, shown as an influence. You'll see all manner of other genres being represented because they're recognizing influences, but the whole way through they're educating and explaining to you why this is.
Yeah.
And you will see memorabilia from rock artists.
We learned a lot when we went there, and
Yeah.
you weren't sure that you wanted to go.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I wanted to go, but I'm really glad I did. I learned a lot from it, and I saw a much bigger picture. And that is, what I think, like I said, why I say when they nominate artists who are outside of the genre of rock music, they need to explain it. Use the website to explain why you've made these decisions. Give us a good understanding. Because if you can't, then you shouldn't be doing this. Then, if you can't give us a good argument,
Because they like them better.
or because they thought they'd fill more
butts in the
seats.
chair.
You put butts in the chair, yeah, exactly. So give us a good reason. Anyways, though, that's all we wanted to say. These are our thoughts. What do you think? What could you add to this conversation? Do you think this is a good idea, these solutions? Do you have other solutions? And let's keep the conversation going. And hopefully there is some sort of positive change. Anyways, though, that's all. If you like these videos, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. Thank you, patron supporters, for all that you do. Patron supporters do receive exclusive weekly videos not available on this channel. And
You're fierce and mighty.
yep. If you can't be a patron supporter, you can always leave a one-time super thanks. Or you can just click like. Clicking like is free, and it helps this channel a lot. Everybody, thank you for watching. We hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Say goodbye, little guy.